That's true.
a different period, an institutional period.
That's true.
Those two things were not happening at the same
That's
time.
very true.
Yeah.
And the stuff that was coming out during the institution period was like trade books and
Right,
probably
exactly.
stuff that was
And
co-written.
stuff, and quite honestly, stuff that your graduate assistants put together.
Yeah, right. That's
You
insane.
know.
Right. Which is, you ain't writing to signify monkey while you building the institution.
No, you're not.
Yeah,
you're not doing that. I mean, it's important. Did you see this? Speaking of institutions, did you see this foolishness with Ebony yesterday when they apologized to the Republican National Committee? I wanted to march out there. If Ebony was in
Hey, once again, good afternoon, and again, want to welcome you to the National Black Writers Conference. Again, thank you so much for being a part of this great conference. Again, let's give the organizers a big hand for organizing and putting this event together. They always do such a great job, and this panel is part of the great job that they're doing today. Race, Power, and Politics is the title of our panel. Our moderator for the day is Wallace Ford. His panel will be Jelani Cobb, Marc Lamont Hill, Michele Wallace, and Obery Hendricks. So let's welcome our moderator for the day, Wallace Ford.
Thank you and good afternoon. Good afternoon. Hello. All right. Okay. Fine. We would like to, first of all, just thank you for coming to the 14th annual Black Writers Conference here at Medgar Evers College. As was indicated, my name is Wallace Ford. I am the chairman of the Public Administration Department here at Medgar Evers College in the School of Business, and I'm the author of the Point of View contemporary commentary blog, soon to be in a book form, called Love and Hate in the Time of Obama, and also the host of the Inclusion Show, which can be seen in various parts of the country. The introduction today has to do with the topic, of course, race, power, and politics. Race and racism has been described as America's original sin, beginning with the particularly odious form of racially based slavery, which began in this country in the 1600s, which is carried forward in its many iterations to this very day. The issue of power, of course, has a three-part, I'd submit, context. There's knowledge, there's economics, and there's the political aspect of it, of course. And it is one of the, because it is a very important part of the concept of power, it is one of the reasons why it was forbidden for black slaves to learn how to read and write. It certainly was also the reason why black slaves were forbidden to own property. And of course, we see iterations of that again going forward even into the 21st century. But after emancipation, the red line, if you will, was drawn at a different point, and that had to do with access to political power. And the battle with respect to access to political power has been going on, I would submit to you, really since emancipation. And we've had the laws and restrictions and the terrorism to keep black people from voting over many years. And here we are in the 21st century, and we're still talking about voter suppression strategies and legislation being advocated by one major party here in the United States. And so we do have, of course, this notion of power, race and power. Now, on the political side, there's been a progression of politics going from, of course, emancipation politics to dealing with issues that we've seen articulated for so many years in the civil rights era, and I would suggest to you again that the civil rights era and the struggle for civil rights certainly has not ended, but it's entered into a new phase. And certainly in this, we had an era of political activity where there was the first black mayor, the first black governor, and first black senator, and so on in the modern era. And now we've had the first African-American president as well. One of the things that the panelists will be discussing is just where are we in this modern era of politics in terms of black people. And certainly, the election of Barack Obama has brought about such terms as post-racial politics, for example, and we've got to examine that and just see what it really means in terms of the political activity, the political discourse, the political direction that we see for the black community here in this part, first part of the 21st century. So we're going to, I'm going to do my job, which is a very pleasant and one that I'm honored to do, which is to introduce our guests. As was already indicated, our guests are Jelani Cobb, we have Mr. Marc Lamont Hill, and of course we have Mr. Obery Hendricks and Michele Wallace. And we're going to ask our speakers to speak in that order, and we will then open the discussion up to all of you, because this is meant to be an interactive event. And I'm sure our colleagues have much to say that is of interest and value, and of course, so do you. So we want to make sure that we have an inclusionary process here today. So with that, and I'm going to just read from Mr. Cobb's bio, he's an associate professor of history and director of the Institute of African American Studies. Professor Cobb is the author of Substance of Hope, Barack Obama and the Paradox of Progress, The Devil and Dave Chappelle, and other essays, Into the Break of Dawn, a freestyle on the hip-hop aesthetic, which was a finalist for the National Award for Arts Writing. And he has a book coming up called Antidote to Revolution, African American Anti-Communism and the Struggle for Civil Rights. Mr. Cobb has been a featured commentator on MSNBC, National Public Radio, CNN, Al Jazeera, CBS News, and a number of other national broadcast outlets. And you have his Twitter line there in the program, and you're certainly urged to follow him as well. And with that, it's my pleasure, indeed, to introduce Professor Jelani Cobb. Thank you.
I'd like to begin by saying thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be here, especially as someone who has been attending this conference for a very long time. And from the point where I was a fledgling writer, just trying to learn the ropes and find out how, this undertaking, this artistic undertaking, really worked. And so this conference has been key to me in lots of ways over a long period of time. So I'm very happy to be here to talk with you today. When we saw the subject of this panel, I was somewhat apprehensive because I think it's impossible to have this conversation without talking about the Obama presidency, but it's also a very fraught subject in that we have these dissonant impulses that determine in many ways the way that we respond to Obama and the way that we respond to criticism of Barack Obama. That was most evident to me recently when I made a oblique criticism of the My Brother's Keeper, we'll come back to that in a minute, of the My Brother's Keeper program, and its rather obvious shortcomings, failings, and the difficulties implicit within trying to address issues specifically to African American men while we have a black presidency. So, as I was saying, I think the fundamental point here, and I will say this, is that we are in a point of regression while we appear to be in a point of progress. And this is not atypical. We have any knowledge of the history of black people in this country. But to see that there are strains of regression implicit within something that appears to be progress is not uncommon. So in 2008, we saw the election of the first African-American president, something that we saw that none of us ever thought would happen. In 2012, we saw the re-election of an African-American president, and these two things have gone hand in hand with a movement to eviscerate the Voting Rights Act, which, as people have seen, which has been somewhat significantly successful. The ongoing move to make it more difficult for people to have access to the ballot, the ongoing unchecked excesses of a prison industrial complex, the ongoing issues of income inequality, the black communities which are still reeling from failure to redress the disproportionate racial impact of the housing crisis and so on. So all these dynamics have happened at the same time in which we've seen a black presidency. And in talking about those dynamics, it is often taken as a criticism or a referendum on the Barack Obama presidency. I don't think that anything, we should understand it as anything of the sort. Very briefly about My Brother's Keeper, the concern with that program, $300 million that was raised by the Obama administration through private philanthropic efforts to support initiatives relating specifically to young men of color and their particular needs. $300 million sounds like a lot of money, but it's actually less than the New York City budget for the Parks Department for 1 year.
Wow.
This is $300 million, which is spread over 5 years over young men of color across the United States. And this is less than what the Parks Department spends on its annual operating budget for one city, for New York City. That's the first thing. The second thing that's really a particular concern here is that it says, in 1896, when